2023 to be a year of significant declines in inflation, and it's actually our job to make sure that that's the case. But I would tell you that, with inflation,
I'm Christopher Crystal, and welcome to Financial Stockholm. Today is Monday, March 6th, 2023, and these are the thoughts on what we're seeing in the Swedish or Scandinavian press. Thoughts for how you can discuss strategies with your investment advisor to help you develop a strategy for your investments. Nothing of what we say is to be considered investment advice. So over the weekend, we had our big cross-country ski race, which was called the VasaLoppet. We even started selling the VasaLoppet tickets for next year, which will be the 100th anniversary of the VasaLoppet. And for the first time in 10 years, we had a Swedish man winning. We can't say that we had a Swedish woman yet winning but hopefully next year we get both the man and the woman winning in the VasaLoppet. We've already started selling the tickets, like I said. That happens during the race, and it's a very tough race to get into, and can take anywhere. The pros are doing it in somewhere between 2 and 3 hours, and the average individual who's never cross-country skied will take around 12 hours at least of just moving. It's very painful for them. But otherwise, for those who train, I think the average time in general is something like 6 hours. And then for the less trained, it's maybe 8 hours and 12 hours. So the cross-country ski race was the big part. That's a big boost for our region called Dalarna. And let's hope for that luck for next year. We also had some very exciting news on Friday talking about nuclear reactors. We have a Swedish company called Blykalla. And so the cold lead would be a kind of literal translation of this. Company is going to be testing a nuclear reactor at Studsvik. And this is a SMR design, or what they translate to in Swedish as a small scale build. And so we call it small modular reactor in English. We'll be building one of those at Studsvik. That's not a guarantee on who's going to be building these. I would think the projects for our recent announcements, where we have anywhere from 3 to 4 being built in the near term, will be done with Westinghouse. You did have a new scale approval a few months back. That was 12,000 pages over something like over 12 million or 2 million pages. So you have 12,000 page application, 2 million pages of documents being sent to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission in the United States if you want to get a new reactor approved. No idea that it'll take that long here in Sweden. Hopefully it'll take less. And we have a bounty of countries and sources that we can use for reactors. So we will be moving forward with nuclear, and that's about time. Our food prices continue to trend up, and we're looking at a increased cost of energy. We have a lot of inflation figures coming, and we'll see at the end of this week how it works for the US with the jobless reports and German CPI. And then I think we get some Chinese manufacturing data. So we're looking at quite a few figures for our inflation. And one of the solutions we would have to a produce issue would be using vertical farming. Now, that means you're pretty much growing in a box, or if you need a better definition of it, you could look at what's being done in Holland. You could look at what's being done in Japan. Japan as a nation is one of the largest users of vertical farming. China has recently been adopting it. And then if you go into the US, you can look at places like Jackson Hole, where they're doing a fair amount of vertical farming. And so you can look at that information. The man behind this, or primary driver behind it, is an individual by the name of Dixon Despommier. He's a Columbia professor, has been a leading proponent for this technology for the last 40 years plus, I think. And this would be a way that you're doing hydroponics indoors, and you can set it up so that you're growing without the need for large arable land. This is very interesting because when you look at Holland, that has shut down something like 3,000 farms the other month. The United States, where Bill Gates has bought up over 800,000 miles of land, farmland, you look at a scenario where you would wonder, okay, how will these places be farming? And what would they be doing? And could you use buildings? Now, we have a lot of buildings that are going to be free because people don't want to work in them. So you would have a farming being done in a building. So if you take a look at this, you can go on, you can get a lot of videos from TED Talks, so forth. You can go to Columbia University website. You can look this information up about vertical farming and how you would farm and feed a population with vegetables. And then you can also do a lot of agrarian farming with ruminant animals, where you would be regrowing topsoil by letting animals eat grass and fertilizing the land that way, which would be a much more natural way to do it. And as you have 70% of the Earth's surface set up for this, and don't forget, ruminant animals would also mean things like elephants down in Africa. And if you look at Alan Savory's institute, the Savory Institute, and reestablishing elephant populations, I think you'll get a lot more information there. The rest of the weekend was spent with Sweden, talking about society and what's going on. And the VasaLoppet is a big part of our society because we had Gustav Vasa, one of our kings, who was running away from nobles who were trying to kill him, and then trying to get other nobles to recruit into his battles. It's a great little legend, and but we also had gang warfare in Sweden this weekend. We didn't have as much as we usually have. We only had a couple shootings or murder attempts through fire, and we use the word, instead of arson, we call it grov mordbrand, which is serious death fire or murder fire. And we had some individuals who were trying to set fire to people, we did have one explosion. What would a weekend be in Sweden without having some sort of explosion? And that was in Helsingborg, which is one of our southern cities. And it seems to be gang related because it was in an apartment building, and the lobby entrance to the building was blown up. And it was last night before 12 o'clock at night. So it was still on Sunday night, not in Monday. And then as we'll be getting these factory figures and others, I've put some links in. The jobless reports in the US, January was 517,000. And some of this was seasonality. January is typically a very strong month, and the expectation had been for around 223,000. And then you had this very high figure in the US overshooting it. So will we have another overshoot? Part of the overshoot the last month was people who had been striking rejoining the workforce. We've had a similar event occurring this past month. So will we have a stronger than expected? Will we have higher inflation than anticipated? Will we have more wages than before? I'm sure we might have a little bit better than anticipated. But remember, we had lost 20 million jobs under the Trump administration due to the COVID shutdowns. And then when Biden has rejoined and restarted the economy, so to speak, you still don't have that full replacement yet. You're getting back to it. So these job reports where you see more people joining hotel and bar industry are these people who are leaving mundane corporate jobs to rejoin a service economy where they get to see people, meet people, and have a good time, have a better time being a waiter, have a better time working in a hotel, and not having to do needless paperwork. So that could be a big part of the job report, but we'll have to see. That'll come out on Friday. And with the Ukrainian war, we have more people joining the alliance, more people helping Russia. So China, Iran, funding and supplying, or sending over munitions like drones, and Russia then sending down uranium to Iran. And what will that do with the nuclear talks and Iran? And then what does that do for Israel and the Middle East? How does this impact Syria? So we have a lot going on. But remember, the pricing on oil at $80 to $90 a barrel is ideal if you're somebody like Russia, because Russia, the sanctions are supposed to push Russia, or Russia's only going to be able to sell oil at $60 a barrel. Now, when you put the sanctions on it, and then you've had the cuts, like Russia cut, and then you had the previous, before Russia cut, you had the cuts from the OPEC plus. That's pushing the oil price higher. So Russia's building a significant war chest. And remember, in their wealth fund, they only have rubles, they have gold, and they have Chinese yuan. So the US, by sanctioning and pushing the market higher, is not doing any favors for itself if you want to make Russia poor. Okay, so then things like aluminum sanctions are also going to add to the pot for Russia. So if you want to build an airplane, if you want to build windmill turbines and so forth, aluminum is used in a lot of these products. And as you see a lot of growth coming in those, that means that you're going to need to have a flooding of the market to drive the price down. So in oil, if you really wanted to put Russia out of business, get them out of the war game, you would flood the market. If you want to get them out of the aluminum game, you would flood the market. Now, Norway is going to get to bring their Norsk Hydro and their smelters back online because the price will go up. So the reason that they closed them was because of the low price. They'll now have the opportunity to rejoin on a raised price. And so you'll see that happening. And that means, all of this means that you'll have continued war. I think we're further away from peace talks than we've been. Russia's been using gliding bombs. These are 1,500 kilogram bombs, where 1,000 of the kilograms are actually used to break through concrete. They're called bunker busters sometimes. So even if you've made these concrete bomb-proof areas, these are the munitions that you would use to blow them up. So we're much further away from the peace talks. You had Jens Stoltenberg from Norway's NATO as the head of NATO, saying how that NATO members would be keen to fast track Ukraine into the NATO membership, which means that we would not have a peace talk, because that is a primary condition for Russia regarding peace talks, is that Ukraine would not be, nor would they ever be allowed to join NATO. So if it's joining NATO, this looks like it's something we're going to have for 20 years. We did have Zelensky over the weekend talking about United States soldiers, sons and daughters, joining the army to fight for Ukraine. And so we're much further away than we thought from peace talks, I think. And then, generally speaking, here in the Nordics, Norwegian GDP is going to be revised down slightly. And this is despite stronger auto sales, housing prices going up. You do see Kongsberg, which is primarily a missile, aerospace, and telecom defense company, changing around some of their key personnel, the management personnel. Finland is going to be getting their elections next month, and there's less of a divide between their political parties in terms of the race and who's going to win. So we'll look to see how that coalition turns out. But it's less and less clear because the parties are very, very close in the race. In the Swedish market, I think probably the best news, or the biggest news that we had, really was about dividends. So of our 126 large cap list, we had over 50%, I think it was 57%, raising dividends. And that's because they typically see, in times of uncertainty like we have with our Swedish economy, that you want to raise dividends to keep people invested in your company. And that's what we're looking at. So companies like Hemnet, which are closely or tied to the housing market, are raising their dividend to keep investors interested. And so the key to all of this is to remember, you can always make money in the market. Hopefully what we're talking about would be information that you can use with your investment advisor. So you can find the links on our Substack, and you can find the links in the description, or the link to the Substack in the description on YouTube and so forth. And always speak to your investment advisor about your strategy. This is hopefully going to help you come up with topics to discuss and areas to focus on. One of mine is, of course, energy, but that's because of the strong, tight correlation of energy to any growing economy or any economy in general. So we'll wish you a good luck in the market. You can always make money, whether you're long or short, whether you go long-term or short-term strategy, there's always money to be made. And so subscribe, like, and thank you very much and good luck. Cheers.